The world is holding its breath today, on the 23rd of June 2025, following a dramatic and perilous escalation in the Middle East. Overnight, the United States executed a series of precision airstrikes against Iran's most sensitive nuclear facilities, an operation codenamed Midnight Hammer. This military action represents a profound shift in American policy and a direct intervention in the simmering conflict between Iran and Israel. The immediate aftermath has sent shockwaves across the globe, raising urgent questions about regional stability, the future of nuclear diplomacy, and the very real possibility of a wider, more devastating war. The implications of this single night's events are vast, and will undoubtedly shape international relations for the foreseeable future, as nations and markets react to the unfolding crisis. The operation was justified by Washington as a necessary step to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, a long-standing concern for the United States and its allies, particularly Israel. For months, tensions had been mounting, with diplomatic efforts led by European nations failing to produce a breakthrough. The White House has stated that the strikes were a direct response to Iran's escalating nuclear activities and its refusal to return to the negotiating table under terms acceptable to the West. This action, however, moves the confrontation from the realm of sanctions and rhetoric into direct military engagement, crossing a threshold that previous administrations had been reluctant to breach, fearing unpredictable and uncontrollable consequences. The context for this sudden strike is a complex web of regional animosities. Israel, which views an Iranian nuclear bomb as an existential threat, has been engaged in a shadow war with Tehran for years. Recent escalations, including alleged Israeli strikes on Iranian targets, have brought this conflict into the open. U.S. officials suggest that the decision to launch Midnight Hammer was influenced by intelligence indicating that Iran was on the verge of a significant nuclear advancement. The operation was therefore framed not as an act of aggression, but as a preemptive defensive measure designed to dismantle a clear and present danger before it could fully materialize, a justification that has been met with both support and severe condemnation on the world stage. The primary objective, according to a statement from the Pentagon, was to significantly degrade Iran's ability to produce weapons-grade uranium, thereby pushing back its nuclear timeline by several years. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was clear in his initial briefing that the operation was not intended to be the first step towards a regime change, but rather a focused and limited military action with a singular strategic goal. However, the sheer scale of the operation and the high-profile nature of the targets have left many questioning this narrow definition. The world now watches intently to see whether this was a calculated move to force diplomacy or the opening salvo in a conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East. Operation Midnight Hammer was executed with overwhelming force and precision in the pre-dawn hours of June 22. According to initial reports from the U.S. Department of Defense, the mission involved a formidable air armada of over 125 military aircraft, including a contingent of 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, which are specifically designed to penetrate sophisticated air defense systems undetected. These aircraft delivered a payload of more than 75 precision-guided munitions. The scale of the operation indicates meticulous planning and a clear intent to inflict maximum damage on the selected targets, leaving little room for doubt about the seriousness of the American military's commitment to its objectives. The operation was swift, and U.S. officials reported no resistance from Iranian air defenses, suggesting a significant element of surprise was achieved. The strikes specifically targeted Iran's 3 most crucial nuclear sites, the pillars of its atomic program. The Fordow fuel enrichment plant, a facility built deep inside a mountain to protect it from aerial attack, was a primary target. To breach its hardened defenses, the U.S. military employed at least 14 specialized bunker buster bombs, powerful munitions designed to penetrate layers of rock and reinforced concrete. The other 2 sites hit were the Natanz enrichment facility, Iran's largest, and the Isfahan nuclear technology center, which is essential for uranium conversion. By hitting these 3 locations simultaneously, the United States aimed to cripple the entire chain of Iran's nuclear fuel cycle, from conversion to enrichment. The aftermath, as revealed by initial satellite imagery released by Maxar Technologies, shows extensive and severe damage. At Fordow, large craters are visible near the tunnel entrances, suggesting the underground facilities themselves may have been compromised. Similarly, images from Natanz and Isfahan depict destroyed buildings and widespread debris fields. U.S. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane confirmed that all munitions hit their intended targets with the desired effect, a clinical assessment of what amounts to the near-total destruction of Iran's overt nuclear infrastructure. The International Atomic Energy Agency has warned of the considerable damage, though a full, independent assessment of the long-term impact on Iran's nuclear capabilities remains difficult. President Donald Trump addressed the nation shortly after the operation was confirmed, hailing Midnight Hammer as a spectacular military success. He asserted that the strikes were carried out to protect American interests and ensure global security. In a more provocative turn, however, he later posted on social media suggesting an openness to regime change, a statement that directly contradicted earlier assurances from his own defense secretary and created confusion about the ultimate U.S. goal. This dual messaging has only served to heighten tensions, leaving allies and adversaries alike uncertain of Washington's true intentions and the potential for further military action in the days and weeks to come. The response from Tehran was swift and furious. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi immediately condemned the airstrikes as a heinous crime and a blatant violation of his country's sovereignty. He declared that diplomacy was now off the table and that Iran reserved its absolute right to defend itself. President Masoud Pezeshkian echoed this defiant tone, accusing the United States of acting in collusion with Israel. Hours after the U.S. strikes, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps launched a barrage of missiles towards Israel, raising the specter of a direct state-on-state conflict. The international community has reacted with a mixture of alarm and division. Key American allies, including the United Kingdom, Canada, France, and Germany, have largely urged restraint and called for an immediate return to diplomatic channels. These European powers were reportedly not informed of the strikes in advance and now see their mediation efforts in tatters. In stark contrast, Russia and China, powerful allies of Iran, have condemned the U.S. action unequivocally. They have accused Washington of reckless aggression that threatens to destabilize the entire global order. The economic fallout was immediate and significant. Global oil prices surged by over 5% on fears of supply disruptions through the Strait of Hormuz. This spike in energy costs is likely to fuel inflation worldwide. Major international airlines have begun rerouting flights to avoid Iranian and surrounding airspace, leading to logistical chaos for travelers. This disruption serves as a tangible indicator of the instability that now grips the region. Experts are warning of a period of unprecedented danger. The immediate risk is a cycle of escalation, where each retaliatory action provokes an even stronger response. Pentagon officials are monitoring U.S. troop readiness, anticipating potential counterattacks from Iran or its proxy groups in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. The consensus is that while neither side may want full-scale war, the current trajectory has made such an outcome dangerously possible. The delicate balance of power in the Middle East has been shattered. Looking ahead, the world is watching for Iran's next move. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei faces a pivotal decision. While the initial missile barrage against Israel demonstrated a willingness to retaliate, insiders suggest that Tehran's leadership is deliberating a more calculated response. The prevailing strategy may be one of escalate to de-escalate, a carefully calibrated series of actions designed to demonstrate strength and deter further attacks without provoking an all-out war with the United States. This could involve further limited strikes, mobilizing regional proxies to target U.S. or Israeli interests, or disruptive cyber attacks. The key challenge for Iran is to appear strong enough to satisfy domestic hardliners while avoiding a conflict that could prove catastrophic for the regime. On the American side, the conflicting messages from the White House have created a cloud of uncertainty. While the Pentagon insists the mission's goal was limited to the nuclear program, President Trump's talk of regime change has opened a Pandora's box of possibilities. This ambiguity could be a deliberate strategy to keep Tehran off balance, but it also risks miscalculation. The international community, particularly European allies, will likely intensify efforts to mediate through back channels, potentially using intermediaries like Oman or Qatar, to re-establish some form of communication. However, with Iran's public rejection of diplomacy, the prospects for any meaningful negotiations in the immediate future appear exceedingly dim. The long-term consequences for nuclear non-proliferation are profound. The strikes, while physically damaging Iran's facilities, have not erased the scientific knowledge and expertise that its scientists possess. Many analysts fear that this attack will only strengthen the resolve of hardliners in Tehran to pursue a nuclear weapon as the ultimate deterrent against future attacks, driving the program deeper underground and away from any international oversight. The very action meant to prevent a nuclear Iran may, paradoxically, make it an inevitability. This event could also serve as a dangerous precedent for other nations, suggesting that military force is a viable alternative to the painstaking process of diplomacy and international agreements. Ultimately, the region and the world stand at a critical crossroads. The coming days will be crucial in determining whether this crisis can be contained, or if it will spiral into a broader conflict with devastating human, economic, and geopolitical costs. The decisions made in Washington and Tehran will have repercussions that extend far beyond their borders, affecting global security, energy markets, and the very fabric of international law. For now, a tense and fragile quiet has settled over the Middle East, but it is a quiet filled with the anticipation of what might come next, as the world waits to see if diplomacy can triumph over the drumbeat of war.